All right, in this video, we're gonna go over the one-handed clean. And the one-handed clean is the progression to the two-handed clean or two kettlebell clean. There is a movement called the two-handed clean that we're gonna go over, and that is part of the progression to learning the one-handed clean, ironically enough, because that's two hands on one bell. But let's go over what is the clean. The clean is when you hike the bell and use your hips to drive and your arm will guide. Keep that in mind, hips drive, arms guide, that bell up into the rack position. From here, you can do squats, you can do presses, you can move up and practice your snatch progressions. There's all kinds of, world is your oyster at that point. So if you don't have the clean down, you're gonna have a harder time getting a bell up. So that's why it's part of why it's important. It's also important because it's just a great tool. It's a great leg workout. You have to really understand how to drive through the hips, just like by doing the swings, as well as getting your arms involved. So if you want big jacked arms, like big, thick, juicy biceps and awesome grip, the clean is a great exercise for that. If you want to have a lot of lower body power, two kettlebell cleans are gonna be awesome for that. But for now, the one-handed clean is the move that we're gonna work on. And the way that it works is when we start off with this 24 right here, nice and easy. You're gonna sit back into your hips, just like you would a swing, hand on the bell. You're gonna hike it, and as you come up, or as you stand up, you are going to pull that bell nice and low. So you're gonna pull your hand to your hip, almost like you're drawing out a 6-shooter. You want your elbow to get behind you, and then you're gonna let that bell rock and roll its way up to the top where it's on the outside of your forearm. It should not come up, swing and slam down on you. It should never come up and then back down. It should be a nice smooth transition into that rack position. Part of this is we are keeping that elbow back and want our thumb to kind of be tracing along where a zipper would be or the buttons of your shirt would be going up and down, right? So what it'll look like is good setup position for a swing and nice and smooth into that rack position. Then when we drop it, we're just tracing back down that zipper and diving our hand back into our backswing. Like so. So that is what a set of cleans would look like. Now, things to keep in mind. We're really focusing on driving, pulling that hand back. We want to keep it nice and close to us, what we call taming the arc. And now when we drop that bell, we don't want to pop it off. We literally just want to almost drop it. And then we wait until it gets to our hips to go back into the backswing. Just like with our swing, when we wait for that bell to come down, we're playing chicken with the zipper. Same concept, wait as long as we can. Now with the clean, because it won't have the same backwards trajectory, driving back, when it comes down to this point, we have to drive our hand back. Another point of emphasis is if the swing is locking your hips out at a 10 out of 10, as hard as you possibly can. The clean is a little bit different. With the clean, you're still going to accelerate that same range of motion from the end of your backswing all the way up to that hip lockout. However, you're only gonna build it up to say 40 or so, right? As that swing builds up 0 to 100, you're gonna go to about 40 or so, and then right at the very end, slam on the gas to go 40 to 60. And it's gonna pop that thing up, right? The key being that we still wanna get that full range of motion, but we're not driving as hard as we can and full acceleration. We're guiding it up, and then final pop of the hips will drive that bell and give it enough to bring it up. But you gotta remember, your arm is still gonna be doing some of the work, right? It shouldn't feel like your arm is doing any work, but your arm is still gonna be able to do some of that work to guide it into position. We also don't need to move the bell as far. If you think about it, right? When we do a swing, we're bringing that bell all the way up and out away from us to shoulder height. With the clean, we're bringing that bell still up to shoulder height, but it only has to go from hip to shoulder rather than hip to shoulder and out. So you don't need quite as much force, but you still need to have that pop right at the end of the hips to give it that final snap and send it flying, right? It's when people over accelerate and think like, oh, I really got to drive just as hard as my swing and get my hips through, overextend sometimes, that's when the bell flies away from them, right? By waiting and getting that final snap at the end, you can drive that force vertically rather than forward, and that'll help guide it so that you're taming the arc nice and close to you, and it's an easier roll into that rack position. And the key with that, and the reason why that's important, is that taming the arc not only shortens the distance, it's also safer on your forearms, and a good rack makes for a good press and a good squat. So if you don't have a good rack position because your clean is shit, well, everything that comes after that's gonna be shit. Plain and simple. So we want economy of movement, and we wanna make sure that we're activating all the right muscles in the right ways. So pulling that arm back, right? And as we drop, getting your elbow out of the way and getting it behind you will again tame that arc, keep it nice and close to you so it's not a big swing out. It's right into place. Now from the side, what this will look like is we get set up just like our swing. Like so. You notice the bell's not swinging super far away from me, and it's rolling into place as it comes up. As I drop that bell down, I'm just rolling that bell around the outside of my hand and dropping my hand right in there, right? So we're letting that bell fall off the outside, dropping our hand down. Our grip isn't a death grip. If you have a death grip on the way up or down, it's gonna fuck with the bell. The bell handle needs to be able to smoothly rotate through your hand, right? Without grabbing onto too much skin. If you squeeze too tight, that bell won't be able to roll, and then that's where you start to feel that slam over, you get it, a lot of issues, right? So think orangutan grip, just like with our swing, firm enough to have control over it, but we're not squeezing the shit out of it. A drill that we're gonna go over that will help with avoiding some of this, if you struggle with taming that arc, is you can do what's called the row and stand up drill. And what that does is that's just reinforcing that we're gonna get this pull back, right? And then stand up and let it roll into place. And the reason we pull back is because if we pull our arm back, well, that gets our elbow out of the way and allows for shorter range of motion. However, in order to rack it, we need to bring our elbow back underneath it to support it. So when we catch it, we're still supported in that rack position. The way that we can do this is we get into our setup, only instead of hiking the bell, we row the bell up towards the base of our ribs. And then as we stand up, we just stand up and drive our hand through to grab that bell. What that looks like is from the side here, I'm standing over the bell, grabbing on tight. I'm gonna pull and row that bell up, and then I'm going to stand up into my rack position. Drop it down, and repeat. Row it up, stand up into the rack position. And we just practice driving that elbow in, tame the arc on the way down, row it up, stand up into that rack position. Another thing that will help with avoiding over gripping it is when you catch, you want to spear the bell. So rather than catching with a closed fist, you notice how my hand is kind of loose and almost pointing fingers up. By catching with fingers pointed up, that allows us to let that bell rotate around our hand and onto our wrist without any extra impediments, if you will. So what that looks like from the front is like this. Spearing the bell. And it's also a great way to make sure that when you catch, you have a neutral wrist ready to press. Because if you don't have a neutral wrist, you're gonna have a hard time holding that bell up and it's gonna cave everything down, right? So being that spear with the hand allows you to drive that hand through, spear it through, and keep everything neutral and in a great rack position for when you catch. Now, when it comes to programming for cleans, I'm a fan of that 5 to 10 rep range. Mixing in some presses and squats with it is always welcome, but if you're only doing cleans, 5 reps or 10 reps is more than enough to get a similar but different effect to our swing conditioning. For one-handed cleans, generally goes well with press, push press, or jerk mixed in. So doing a clean press, without putting that bell down, for example. And that will exponentially increase the amount of work that you're doing in that set. But if you're only doing cleans, set of 5 to get started, 10 is a great conditioning tool, and you're gonna feel that your whole body's gonna have to be working. You get a lot more upper body activation with this than you do from just say a one-handed swing. However, don't neglect doing your swings and other things. Make sure that you're still practicing your swings and get really good at them before you move on to only cleans. Swings tend to be a little bit better for overall conditioning effect rather than the clean, which is more of a setup for other things. So that being said, 5 to 10 reps. You can always check the sample programs, but that is our one-handed clean.